The moment you stopped making yourself smaller, someone out there began to feel unsettled. That's the truth they'll never openly admit, and it hits them harder than any direct confrontation ever could. Because for so long, they relied on you staying unsure, quiet, hesitant, and easy to influence. But without warning, you rewrote the script. You broke the cycle without asking for approval, and you shifted in a way they never saw coming. Just like that, their sense of comfort cracked beneath them like thin ice under real pressure. Picture a still pond, calm and undisturbed, until a single stone drops into it, small and quiet. Yet the ripples spread across the entire surface, disrupting everything that depended on that stillness. That's what you did. You didn't explode, you didn't make a scene, you didn't stage some dramatic rebellion. You simply adjusted your energy, your mindset, your awareness, and those subtle ripples reached straight into their world. Now the same people who once felt at ease around you start acting different, uneasy, even threatened. There's a simple psychological truth behind it. People fear unpredictable change more than obvious chaos. Chaos is loud and expected. You can prepare for it. You can see it coming. But quiet, subtle, unannounced growth, that's what triggers a deeper, instinctive fear. You became unpredictable in a powerful way. They could no longer read you, anticipate your reactions, or influence your emotional state. And the moment someone realizes they can't control you anymore, fear replaces the comfort they once relied on. Without you even noticing, your quiet transformation struck directly at their ego. While you were simply focusing on healing, minding your business, choosing peace, living your life in a normal way, they felt the shift before you did. They sensed the moment you outgrew the version of yourself they depended on. They felt the instant your innocence turned into awareness. You didn't even notice what you did. But trust me, they did. They noticed instantly. They noticed deeply, and it terrified them more than any argument or confrontation ever could. And thank you, chosen one. Before we keep going, don't forget to pay this message back by simply pressing like and subscribe. It helps the message reach more souls who need it. It's not just content, it's a mission, and you being here means you're part of a force. Thanks for choosing to stand with this message. Now, let's slip right back into what's unfolding around you. Here's what they won't tell you. They depended on you, not knowing who you were. They relied on your doubt, your confusion, your softness, your silence. They survived off your hesitation. They benefited from your lack of boundaries. They loved the version of you that didn't ask questions, the one who apologized just for existing, the one who ignored red flags, the one who overgave, the one who believed their lies because your heart was just too honest. But then something happened, something small on the outside but massive on the inside. You stopped letting people talk to you any way they wanted. You stopped saying yes when you meant no. You stopped breaking yourself to keep others comfortable. You stopped allowing your loyalty to be taken as weakness. You stopped letting manipulation slide. You stopped pretending you didn't see the things your intuition whispered about. You didn't become cold, you became clear. You didn't become rude, you became real. You didn't become difficult, you became unavailable to disrespect. That's the shift. That's the earthquake. That's the moment the universe circled around you and said, finally. And the people who were used to your old patterns, they felt that shift like a storm rolling in behind their back. You didn't give them a warning. You didn't send out a memo. You didn't even do anything dramatic. You just changed, and they weren't ready for the upgraded version of you. Because the upgraded version sees everything, understands motives, and can read intentions like subtitles. The upgraded version doesn't cling, doesn't chase, doesn't beg, doesn't break. And that version of you is dangerous, not because you harm anyone, but because you finally stopped harming yourself to please them. They are terrified because your clarity exposed them. Your strength revealed their weakness. Your boundaries exposed their dependence on your lack of boundaries. Your peace revealed their chaos. Your growth revealed their stagnation. And the funniest part in all of this, they know exactly what part of your evolution threatens them the most. They know the exact moment you woke up. They know the exact moment their influence stopped working. They know the exact second they lost access to the old you. And every day since then, they've been trying to act like nothing's different. But inside, the panic is eating them alive. And while they're losing sleep over what version of you they'll meet next, you're just out here trying to choose healthier thoughts, better habits, and cleaner energy. You're not even doing anything to them. You're just minding your business. But for people who thrived off your confusion, your peace feels like a threat. For people who needed you small, your confidence is a nightmare. For people who depended on your silence, your voice is a problem. For people who fed on your guilt, your self-respect is a disaster. They're not scared because you're doing something wrong. They're scared because you've finally started doing something right. And here's the plot twist. You still don't fully know what you did. You're still trying to figure out why certain people started acting distant, tense, awkward, or defensive ever since you grew. But the truth is simple. When you evolve, people either rise with you or fall back into the shadows. And the ones falling back aren't falling because you pushed them. They're falling because your new level exposes their old tricks. You are a walking reminder of everything they refuse to work on. You are proof that healing is possible. Growth is possible. Self-respect is possible. And that makes you a threat to anyone committed to staying the same. The universe didn't make you stronger for no reason. It didn't sharpen your intuition for no reason. It didn't pull you out of old patterns for no reason. It didn't wake you up just so you could go back to sleep. You shifted because you were meant to. You shifted because you needed to. You shifted because staying who you used to be would have destroyed you. And now your evolution is exposing every person who only tolerated you when you were lost. You have no idea what you did, but they do. And believe me, they're absolutely terrified. This is just the beginning. Let's break down exactly why the new you has them watching their own shadows. And chosen one, seriously, thank you for being here. You didn't land on this message by accident. The universe nudged you because what comes next is going to hit differently. So, before we go any deeper, show some love to the mission behind this message. Hit like, subscribe, and drop a comment with 777 so the universe knows you're ready to step into the version of yourself that has people trembling. And if you want to push this message further, you can bless the team with a super thanks. Whether it's a single cent or something bigger, every piece of support fuels the work that keeps truth like this reaching the souls who need it most. You're not just watching, you're helping this force grow. And now, let's ease right into the next part. If you really are who I think you are, you'll feel that pull to stay until the end. Because once we start breaking down why they're terrified of you, everything about your past interactions will finally make sense. Let's get into it. Number 1. When you broke free, their power fell apart like cheap paper. Nothing scares a manipulator more than the moment their favorite puppet cuts the strings. They felt that slice long before you even realized you stopped playing along. That's the part that eats them alive. You weren't plotting, you weren't scheming, you weren't trying to expose anyone. You simply grew quietly and naturally, and your evolution hit them like a spotlight they never asked for. Because the truth is simple. You didn't expose them with a fight. You exposed them by outgrowing the version of you they needed to control. They built their whole confidence on the belief that they knew how to steer you. They thought they had your emotions mapped out like a blueprint. They assumed you'd keep reacting the way you always did. But then something shifted in you. Something they didn't see coming. Something they couldn't measure or manage. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. But it broke their entire strategy. Think of it like this. Imagine someone leaning all their weight on a door, bragging about how they're strong enough to keep it shut. They smirk. They boast. They flex. But one day you simply walk away from the other side, and they crash to the floor, because they never had real strength to begin with. Their power depended on you holding the door closed. That's what your evolution did to them. You're probably wondering, but what exactly did I do? Why did they freak out? Why did their behavior change so fast? Here's the hard truth. They weren't scared of losing you. They were scared of losing access to you. They were scared of losing the version of you who didn't question their motives. They were scared of losing the influence they thought was permanent. And the second you stopped feeding that influence, it died. Humans who rely on manipulation always bet on one thing: the other person staying unaware. As long as you were confused, self-doubting, or emotionally tangled, they were safe. They survived off your uncertainty. They needed you to be predictable. They needed your reactions. They needed your softness. They needed your guilt. They needed you to keep interpreting their pressure as care, their manipulation as concern, and their control as connection. But then you stopped responding to their cues. You stopped bending your energy around their moods. You stopped over-explaining yourself. You stopped seeking validation from people who gave you crumbs. You stopped letting guilt drive your decisions. And when your internal world shifted, their external world shook. The scariest kind of rebellion is the one that isn't announced. It just happens. And that's exactly what you did. You didn't declare war. You didn't throw a tantrum. You didn't expose them publicly. You simply changed the way you carried yourself. And that calm evolution forced them to face an ugly truth. Their influence only existed because you allowed it. Once that allowance disappeared, so did their power. Your silence used to work in their favor. Now your silence works against them. Because now your silence doesn't mean confusion. It means clarity. It means awareness. It means you're done entertaining the nonsense they use to throw your way. And nothing terrifies a manipulator more than a person who can't be baited anymore. You didn't have to say, "I see what you're doing." Your energy said it for you. Your boundaries said it for you. Your lack of reaction said it for you. Your peace screamed louder than any argument ever could. It's almost funny. They thought they were the ones observing you, analyzing you, reading you like a book. But the moment you caught even one glimpse of their patterns, the whole mask slipped. You didn't expose them intentionally, but you exposed the fact that they were only powerful as long as you stayed in the dark. They know you see them now. They know the old tricks won't work. They know the fake superiority has cracks. They know their intimidation lost its effect. They know their emotional games can't hit you the way they used to. And that realization, it shook them deeply, quietly, permanently. Here's what they don't want to admit. You were the one giving them relevance. Without you, they're just a person with a handful of manipulative habits and nowhere to aim them. And now that you're no longer orbiting their insecurity, they're forced to face what they were hiding from. You were never the fragile one they were. They depended on your confusion. They fed on your empathy. They clung to your loyalty. They abused your softness. But now that your clarity is sharp, their influence looks ridiculous. Their guilt trips fall flat. Their little power plays seem childish. Their control tactics feel predictable, and they can feel you slipping out of their reach, not with anger, but with ease. And ease is what terrifies them the most. Because if you can walk away from their influence so effortlessly, what does that say about the power they swore they had? What does that say about the identity they built around controlling you? What does that say about the role they forced themselves into? You have them questioning themselves in a way they never expected. You have them wondering how long you've been seeing the truth. You have them wondering who else can see their weakness when they look at you. You have them replaying every moment where they thought they were fooling you. And that's the beauty of your evolution. You didn't hurt them. You humbled them. They're not terrified because you did something. They're terrified because you stopped doing something. You stopped needing them. You stopped validating them. You stopped shrinking for them. You stopped filling the role they imagined for you. And that shift made their influence collapse like cardboard in the rain. They always thought you'd stay predictable. You became unreadable. They always thought you'd stay dependent. You became self-sufficient. They always thought you'd stay silent. You became observant. Your growth is their exposure. So now they're terrified, not because you attacked them, but because you outgrew them so naturally that their manipulation couldn't keep up. And when someone loses control over a person they once relied on controlling, they don't get angry, they get afraid. This is the part they'll never say out loud. You accidentally showed them how powerless they really were. And nothing is more humiliating to someone who built their identity on being in control. This is why their energy toward you shifted. This is why their tone changed. This is why they act uncomfortable, restless, defensive, or distant. This is why they look at you differently now. This is why they don't talk the same way anymore. This is why they react like you're unpredictable because you are. You're unpredictable to them because they can't control you anymore. And that's what real fear looks like. Your evolution dismantled everything they thought they built around you. And you didn't even mean to do it, but trust me, they felt it. They still feel it. And they'll keep feeling it because nothing haunts a manipulator more than the person who woke up. Number 2, you didn't just break their narrative, you burned the whole script in front of them. A liar's worst nightmare is someone who stops behaving the way their lies describe. When the truth walks in with its head held high, every false story starts choking. Nothing collapses faster than a narrative built on jealousy, trying to describe someone it can't control. They felt all 3 of those truths hit at once the moment you stepped out of the role they wrote for you. Because yes, they wrote one. They had a whole storyline prepared, and in their little fantasy, you were the supporting character, the lost one, the insecure one, the one who never figured things out. They needed you small so their story could seem big. They needed you confused so their lies could sound believable. They needed you predictable so their manipulation could stay hidden. Your whole identity in their eyes wasn't even yours. It was a version they painted, exaggerated, twisted, and repeated until even they believed it. Then something happened that they never prepared for. You woke up, you grew, you evolved. You stepped out of their narrative like stepping out of a fog, and suddenly everything they crafted around you started falling apart. Imagine this. Someone builds a house from cardboard, decorates it, paints it, takes pictures of it, and tells everyone it's a mansion. They brag about how strong it is, how flawless it is, how they built it perfectly. But one day, a breeze rolls through. A soft, simple breeze, and the whole mansion collapses. That breeze was you choosing to live in your truth. Here's another image. Picture someone stitching a puppet. They pick the strings, tie the knots, rehearse the movements. They practice pulling the puppet left, right, forward, backward. But one day the puppet stands up, cuts one string, then another, and finally looks them dead in the face with no fear. That's the moment their story about you died. You probably ask yourself, what story were they even trying to tell about me? Why did they need to twist everything? Because people who fear your potential will always try to control your image. They can't control your soul, so they try to control your reputation. They can't stop your growth, so they try to shape how others see you. They can't weaken you internally, so they try to weaken you externally. That's the blueprint of insecure manipulators. And here's what makes them terrified. Now, your evolution didn't just contradict their narrative, it exposed it. The truth doesn't need to scream, it just needs to exist. The moment you started making decisions that didn't match their script, their whole illusion cracked. You became stronger when they needed you fragile. You became calm when they needed you reactive. You became self-aware when they needed you confused. You became confident when they needed you uncertain. Every new version of you was another plot twist they didn't authorize. Imagine a movie where the villain is bragging about how they've figured out the hero, only for the hero to suddenly develop a new power, a new form, a new mindset the villain never saw coming. That's how they see you now. You change the genre without letting them rewrite the dialogue. And that's where their fear begins. They spent so much time shaping how others saw you, spreading subtle lies, dropping small remarks, twisting small details, rewriting intentions, repainting your character flaws darker than they really were, softening their own flaws so no one noticed. Every rumor, every whisper, every backhanded comment was meant to reinforce a single idea. You were beneath them. But when you started thriving, their story started dying. The moment you stepped into your strength, their story became unbelievable. The moment you spoke with clarity, their lies looked sloppy. The moment you stopped reacting, their accusations lost power. The moment you became self-aware, their narrative lost its anchor. You didn't fight them. You simply became undeniable. And everything undeniable ruins everything artificial. That's the part that scares them. They can't argue against your authenticity. They can't discredit results that people can see. They can't twist what's in front of them. They can't manipulate a story when the main character refuses to follow the script. Their biggest mistake was assuming you would stay the same forever. You grew. Their narrative didn't. You evolved. Their lies stayed stuck. You expanded. Their mindset stayed small. You rose. Their perception stayed outdated. And every time someone sees the new you, someone out there also sees the cracks in the story they tried to tell. That's why they panic around you now, why they act awkward, why they avoid eye contact, why their tone shifts, why they seem defensive for no reason, why they try to pretend like nothing changed because everything changed. When you rise, every lie told in your direction sinks, and trust me, they feel the sinking. Every moment you glow, something they said about you looks stupid. Every time you show strength, something they implied about you looks weak. Every time you make a healthy decision, something they exaggerated about you crumbles. Every time people see your real character, their false version loses value. You're not ruining their story on purpose. You're ruining it because their story was never true in the first place. And let's not ignore the part they hate the most. You didn't expose them with drama. You exposed them by being everything they said you weren't. They spent years trying to convince people you were unstable. Yet here you are, level-headed, calm, grounded. They tried to paint you as weak, yet your resilience speaks louder than their insecurity ever could. They tried to call you lost, yet your clarity now makes them the ones who look confused. They tried to say you'd never grow, yet you evolved into a version of yourself they can't touch. This is why they're terrified. Because if their story about you was really true, then you shouldn't be who you are today. But you are. Which means their story wasn't just wrong, it was exposed as a lie. Imagine a magician performing a trick, making the crowd gasp, flaunting their power. But mid-performance, someone walks behind the curtain and realizes the trick is fake. Then the magician has two problems. The trick doesn't work anymore, and the person who saw the truth now sees everything differently. You are that person. You walked behind the curtain, and now the magician can't fool you or anyone watching you. Your presence alone exposes them. Your success alone invalidates their version. Your peace alone contradicts their script. Your strength alone rewrites the whole narrative. You tore their story apart without even meaning to. You simply outgrew it. You became someone they can't explain, can't control, and can't predict. Someone who doesn't fit the lies they once relied on. Someone who doesn't match the character they tried to force on you. Someone who makes their whole narrative collapse under its own weight. They're terrified because now people see you clearly. And when people see the real you, they also see the real them. Your truth didn't just ruin their story, it erased the illusion they lived in, and it left them exposed to themselves. This is the fear they're living with now. You destroyed the narrative they hid behind, and you did it by becoming who you were always meant to be. Number 3, you outlived the trap they built to break you quietly. The cruelest shock to someone who wanted you shattered is realizing you survived what they designed for your destruction. They thought subtle destruction would be your downfall, not loud attacks, not obvious sabotage. No, your enemy chose the silent route, the psychological slow burn, the kind of emotional erosion that eats away at confidence grain by grain. They built that system on purpose, convinced that if they kept everything invisible, you'd crumble without anyone ever knowing why. They counted on your silence. They banked on your confusion. They expected your exhaustion. They truly believed you'd fold from pressure so quiet that even you would question if it was real. But here's the twist they never prepared for. You adapted quietly, skillfully, relentlessly. Imagine a plant trying to grow through concrete. No one sees the struggle happening beneath the surface. No one sees the pressure, the weight, the suffocation. Yet one day, a tiny crack appears. Then a green stem pushes through, like the laws of nature are bowing to it. That was you. They built concrete. You became the crack they can't patch. Or picture a glass jar they trapped you in. They tightened the lid, reduced the air, waited for you to suffocate emotionally. But you found a way to breathe anyway. You found micro moments of strength no one noticed. You found inner exits they didn't know existed. And when you walked out of that jar with your mind intact, your spirit steady, and your self-awareness sharper than ever, that was their nightmare becoming real. You might ask yourself, if I survived, why are they scared now? Because survival isn't neutral. Silent survival is evidence. It's proof you're far stronger than they assumed. It's proof their tactics failed. It's proof their influence wasn't absolute. They watch you now. Your clarity, your calmness, your confidence, and what they see is terrifying. You were supposed to break. Instead, you evolved. Every time you smile, they feel exposed. Every time you speak calmly, they feel powerless. Every time you make a choice without their shadow guiding it, they panic. You survived something that was engineered to destroy you in silence. And now your existence is the loudest thing in their world. You became the proof that their power had limits. And once someone like you learns to survive in the dark, you become unstoppable in the light. Number 4. You grew into someone their imagination was too small to predict. Nothing terrifies a controlling person more than realizing the seed they tried to stunt turned into a forest they can't navigate. They had your entire life charted out in their heads, every reaction, every limit, every weakness. They swore they knew you better than you knew yourself. They built a mental cage and convinced themselves you'd never climb out. In their mind, your growth would always stay slow, predictable, easy to interrupt. They thought your potential came with an off switch they controlled. But growth doesn't follow their schedule. Growth doesn't wait for their permission. Growth doesn't check in with their ego to see if it's allowed. Imagine someone trying to cage the wind with their hands. They squeeze tighter, thinking they're in control. But the wind slips through every gap. That was you. Your evolution didn't fight them. It simply outgrew the boundaries they drew. Or picture them planting a tiny box around a sapling, confident it'll stay small forever. But one day, the roots break through, the branches extend, the box snaps in half like it was made of cardboard. That's what your awareness did to their control. You might wonder, why does my growth bother them so much? Because your growth exposed their limitations. Your strength exposed their insecurity. Your clarity exposed their manipulation. Your evolution exposed how wrong they were about you. Every new boundary you set, every moment you showed self-respect, every decision that didn't match their expectations, all of it was another reminder that they never actually shaped you. They only shaped the version of you they wanted to believe in. And now that version is dead. Your improvement didn't just surprise them. It embarrassed them because they built their whole identity on thinking you were stuck. And now they're watching you rise level by level while their assumptions crumble like dust in your shadow. They can't predict your next move. They can't measure your growth. They can't contain your direction. You grew in angles they never planned for, in depths they never imagined, and in strength they never believed you had. And that's why they're terrified. Your evolution exposed their imagination as the smallest thing in the room. Number 5. When you went quiet, their entire power supply went dark. The moment you stopped reacting was the moment their kingdom collapsed. Silence is the weapon they never saw coming. Nothing scares a manipulator more than a person who no longer gives them an emotional doorway. They built their whole strategy around your reactions. Your emotions were their electricity. Your responses were their oxygen. Your anger, confusion, explanations, defenses, that was their playground. They didn't need to raise their voice or launch big attacks. All they needed was one thing: your energy. As long as you reacted, they stayed powerful. As long as you explained yourself, they stayed relevant. As long as you got pulled into their drama, they controlled the script. But then something shifted inside you, quietly, sharply, permanently. You stopped reacting, not out of bitterness, not out of spite, but because something in you finally clicked. Reacting to them was the same as obeying them. The moment that realization settled in, you stepped out of their emotional arena without a single word. Think of a parasite suddenly losing its host. It panics, it lashes out, it begins to starve. That's exactly what unfolded when you chose silence instead of engagement. They were left with no emotional fuel to consume, no chaos to control, no reactions to trigger. Your silence became the eviction they never expected you to deliver. Or picture a puppeteer lifting the strings, ready to make the puppet move, only to realize the strings are no longer attached. Their hands keep moving, but nothing responds, and they're left performing to an empty stage. You might wonder why your silence unsettles them more than your anger ever did. And it's because anger can be twisted, confusion can be exploited, and sadness can be used. But silence is power, silence is clarity, silence is freedom. Your stillness became the clearest rejection of their influence. Every ignored insult chipped away at their ego, every steady breath revealed their dependence, and every moment you refused to engage showed the truth. They never had real power, they only had access, and now that access is gone. They can't read you, they can't provoke you, they can't predict you, and they can't reach you anymore. Your silence turned into a wall they can't climb, a boundary they can't bend, and a reality they can't escape. You didn't break their influence by fighting harder, you ended it by stepping out of reach. And that calm, controlled distance is what unsettles them the most. You didn't lose them, you simply stopped pretending they mattered. Nothing shatters an ego faster than realizing the person they believed depended on them never needed them at all. The most powerful rejection isn't loud, it's living well without someone who insisted you couldn't. They built an entire illusion around being essential to your life. In their mind, they were the guide, the foundation, the savior, the one presence you couldn't replace. They needed that belief like oxygen. It made them feel powerful, superior, relevant. It let them mask their insecurity under a costume of importance. But then, something happened that blew their entire self-image to dust. You stopped needing them. Not dramatically, not with accusations or speeches. You simply operated on your own. You made choices without checking in. You handled your emotions without their interference. You lived without chasing their approval. And that quiet independence stabbed deeper than any confrontation ever could. Imagine someone holding a key, bragging about how you'd never get through the door without them. Then you calmly walk around the back and use another entrance. The key becomes meaningless. The person holding it becomes irrelevant. That's the moment they realized they weren't essential. They were just convenient. Or picture them standing on a pedestal they built themselves, convinced the whole world sees them as central to your growth. Then one day you stop looking up. Suddenly that pedestal becomes a lonely, embarrassing place to stand. You might ask yourself, why did my independence scare them so much? Because your independence exposed their illusion. Your calm detachment proved their role was never as big as they advertised. Your self-sufficiency revealed a truth they spent years avoiding. They were tolerated, not treasured, included, not needed, present, not powerful. Every step you took without them cracked their self-image. Every decision you made on your own erased their imaginary importance. Every moment you thrived without their input forced them to face a humiliating truth. They were never the backbone of your life. They were a shadow standing in a place you outgrew. Your freedom didn't just remove them, it exposed their irrelevance. And that, more than anything, is why they're terrified now. Number 7. Your healing didn't just free you, it exposed their whole playbook as useless. The moment you healed, their power evaporated, because broken was the only version of you their strategy worked on. Your recovery wasn't a comeback. It was the final proof that their influence was always a cheap illusion. They built their entire strategy on one assumption, that your wounds would keep you obedient. They didn't need you chained. They just needed you hurting. Pain makes people predictable, and they thought your pain was permanent. They counted on your old triggers, your insecurities, your scars. They believed if they could remind you of your weaknesses enough times, you'd never rise high enough to see their manipulation clearly. But then you did something they never prepared for. You healed. Not halfway, not temporarily, not to impress anyone. You healed for real from the inside out, layer by layer, wound by wound. Imagine someone building a prison with invisible walls. They assume you'll stay trapped because they convinced you the walls are solid. But one day you test them and your hand goes straight through. That's what healing did for you. It showed you that the barriers they spent years installing were made of smoke. Or picture someone tying you with ropes made of fear and guilt. They think the knots are permanent because you never tried to pull away. But once you finally tug, the rope snaps like old string. Your healing didn't just set you free, it embarrassed them. You might wonder, why does my healing terrify them so much? Because healing is the one thing they cannot weaponize. They can twist your emotions, but they can't twist your recovery. They can exploit your pain, but they can't exploit your self-awareness. They can cling to your wounds, but they can't cling to your strength. Your healed version is the one they never wanted to meet. Every layer of clarity you gained exposed how weak their strategy truly was. Every boundary you built made their manipulation useless. Every moment you chose peace over panic erased the leverage they depended on. Your healing flipped their entire system upside down. They see it now, painfully. Their power wasn't real. Their influence wasn't permanent. Their control wasn't skill. It was your trauma. And now that the trauma is gone, so is their access. You no longer break the way you used to. You no longer react the way you once did. You no longer believe the lies you once absorbed. Your healing invalidated everything they designed to keep you small. And here's the part that hits them the hardest. They can't undo it. They can't reverse it. They can't manipulate their way back into your mind. Your healing is permanent. Your strength is locked in. Your self-respect is non-negotiable. They are terrified because your growth proves the truth. They tried to bury. They only looked powerful when you were hurting. Now that you're healed, they look like nothing at all. Number 8. Your evolution became the mirror they never wanted to look into. Nothing haunts a guilty person more than the success of the one they tried to break. Your growth didn't expose them with words. It exposed them with contrast. You becoming whole is the receipt they can't rip up. They never expected your growth to pull back the curtain on their behavior. In their mind, they could move however they wanted, manipulate the story, twist the emotions, shift the blame, and you would stay too overwhelmed or too confused to ever notice. They thought your silence meant ignorance. They thought your forgiveness meant blindness. They thought your empathy meant weakness. But then you evolved, and your evolution dragged their truth into the light. Imagine someone throwing dirt on a white shirt, convinced no one will see it because the room is dark. But then someone flips the switch. Suddenly the stains glow. That's what your growth did. You turned on the lights they never thought you'd reach. Now every petty tactic, every subtle cruelty, every hidden agenda is sitting in plain sight with nowhere to hide. Or picture them building a false image of themselves with cheap plastic, shiny, impressive, perfect from afar. But then you started rising, becoming stronger, clearer, more self-aware. And beside your authenticity, their mask suddenly looked flimsy. That comparison alone created guilt sharp enough to cut through every lie they told themselves. You might wonder, why does my progress make them uncomfortable? Why does my healing bother them? Because your growth is evidence. Evidence of what they did. Evidence of what they tried to shape. Evidence of what you survived. You becoming whole forces them to acknowledge they played a part in breaking you. And that guilt, It's the one consequence they never prepared for. Your rise is the confession they'll never say out loud. Every boundary you enforce reminds them of the lines they crossed. Every calm decision you make reminds them of the chaos they created. Every moment you choose peace reminds them of the turmoil they fed off. Every success you claim reminds them of how hard they tried to hold you back. Your growth invalidates their excuses. Your clarity destroys their narratives. Your independence exposes their selfishness. And the worst part for them, you don't want revenge. You don't need their apology. You don't even need acknowledgement. Your thriving alone is enough to force their conscience awake. Your evolution became the mirror they can't escape. And every time they see you leveling up, that mirror reflects the guilt they tried to bury. Your growth doesn't just liberate you, it convicts them quietly, relentlessly, permanently. Number 9. You walked away from a contract they thought you'd signed in blood. The biggest shock to someone who depended on your kindness is realizing your kindness was voluntary, not a lifetime subscription. When you stop agreeing to a role you never auditioned for, the whole power structure collapses. They built an entire system around your willingness to overgive, not because you were weak, but because you were generous, patient, loyal, understanding, and they mistook that for obligation. They mistook your heart for debt. They built an invisible contract around you, one they never had the courage to say out loud. You exist to make my life easier. They assumed you'd keep giving without limits, that your support was permanent, that your energy was theirs to borrow whenever their insecurities flared up. But then something changed, softly, quietly, fatally for them. You stopped playing the role. You stopped showing up on demand. You stopped absorbing their emotions like it was your duty. You stopped letting, but you always dictate your choices. And that simple shift shattered the entire unspoken agreement they were depending on to feel powerful. Imagine a vending machine they've been using for years. Push a button, get what they want, no cost, no effort. Then one day the machine goes dark. No noise, no explanation. They press the button again, nothing. They shake it, nothing. They pound on the glass, nothing. That's the panic they feel now because you were never a vending machine and your energy was never their product. Or picture a person sitting on a throne made of your emotional labor. Your patience was the seat. Your tolerance was the legs. Your forgiveness was the backrest. The day you took those pieces back, their throne didn't just wobble, it collapsed, and they hit the floor hard enough to finally understand how much of their power was borrowed from you. You might ask yourself, why does my independence feel like a threat to them? Because independence destroys dependency. Because choosing yourself means they lose access. Because your boundaries expose their entitlement, and your refusal unmasks how much they took from you without giving anything back. Your no was the eviction notice they never thought you'd deliver. They feel the shift instantly. Their guilt trips fall flat. Their emotional pressure doesn't land. Their expectations get ignored. Their attempts to pull you back feel pathetic, even to them. And the part that scares them the most, you didn't need a confrontation to free yourself. You didn't scream. You didn't explain. You didn't negotiate. You simply stopped participating in a system you never agreed to. That quiet rebellion hits harder than any argument because it proves something they never wanted to accept. Their power only existed because you allowed it. Your absence shows them how much they depended on you. Your boundaries show them how unbalanced the relationship was. Your independence shows them how unnecessary their control really is. And your peace shows them how much chaos they expected you to carry. Their fear now isn't about losing you. It's about facing the truth that they were never needed, never essential, never the backbone they pretended to be. By breaking the unspoken dependency contract, you exposed their entire system as hollow. You showed them that your effort was a gift, not a duty. Your presence was a choice, not a contract. And your energy was a privilege, not a guarantee. That truth, it terrifies anyone whose power depended on your silence. Number 10. Your entire comeback became the receipt they can't argue with. Nothing exposes a person faster than the success of the one they mistreated. You didn't tell the truth about them. You became the truth. Your healing is the evidence they prayed no one would ever see. They spent years counting on one thing: secrecy. They thought the way they treated you would stay hidden under excuses, charm, fake innocence, and carefully curated narratives. In their mind, you were the perfect shield. Quiet, forgiving, confused, too loyal to ever piece things together. They assumed the story would always tilt in their favor because they mastered the art of pretending. But they miscalculated one massive thing: your evolution. When you healed, when you grew, when you stepped into your strength, you didn't just move forward. You exposed everything they tried to bury. Not with words, not with accusations, not with drama, but with your life. You became the kind of grounded, self-aware, dignified human they never expected you to become. And that version of you is a walking contradiction to every lie they ever told. Picture someone trying to hide cracks in a wall with posters and decorations, everything looking flawless until the light gets brighter. And now that light is you. The fractures they believed no one would ever notice are suddenly visible, and they're realizing there's no way left to conceal them. Or imagine them rewriting the past in their own mind, casting themselves as the wise one, the victim, even the hero, only to watch you thrive in a way that makes their entire version of events collapse. Your stability dismantles their excuses, your growth quiets the story they tried to control, and your calm presence invalidates every accusation they once placed on you. You might ask yourself why your progress affects them so deeply, and the answer is simple. Because your progress reveals their past. Your strength exposes their weakness, and the boundaries you set highlight how far they once overstepped. Your peace reflects the chaos they created, and without saying a word, you've already shown everything that needed to be seen. You didn't need to expose them, you simply outgrew them, and that alone uncovered everything. Every level you reach reminds them of every failed attempt to control you. Every moment of clarity you carry exposes how unclear their intentions always were, and every ounce of dignity you hold proves they misjudged you from the beginning. What unsettles them the most is this: your existence has become undeniable evidence. You can't be silenced, you can't be rewritten, and you can't be undone. You survived what they hoped would define you, and because of that, you now define them in a way they can't escape. That truth doesn't need to be spoken to be real. It's the one thing they can't manipulate, run from, or erase. So, chosen one, you walked out of the cage they built without even looking back, and that alone proves everything they tried to shape, limit, or control was never strong enough to hold you. Your growth revealed their weakness, your freedom exposed their intentions, and your evolution proved they were never the architect of your life. You were. If this message resonated with you, hit the like button, and if you're not part of this community yet, make sure you subscribe, because your next level deserves to be seen.